It's Stevivor's Friendly Fire Show. It's the 210th episode for the very start of September 2022. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Wright. Joining me, of course, as always, is my friend and yours, Ben Salter. Hello, Ben.
You're looking so chirpy this week, Steve. Last week you were so flat from Gamescom, and it's not like we're doing this in a close proximity to that episode, so you'd never know.
If you're watching the video, you might have insider knowledge, and if not, I'm going to try to pretend that I'm not exhausted. I think I just let it go. I let the cat out of the bag. Oh well. Do you have NBN yet?
No NBN yet. No updates since last week. Very annoying.
I can't tell you if I won my hockey games that have happened since the last time I told you about hockey games or not, but I'll tell you the next time. Probably, maybe, for sure.
I think they get it. Now and again, we record an episode a little ahead of time, so it doesn't matter. You still get your weekly entertainment fix with the Friendly Fire Show.
But it's probably a good thing, to be honest. Like, we're recording this at the same time we did the Gamescom episode of last week, and really all the news will have been in the Gamescom episode. So this time we're gonna focus on a review, I think, for the most part. But we'll talk about some other stuff as well. I, for some reason, am an idiot and a glutton for punishment, and I've been playing Death Stranding, I guess technically for the third time.
The internet is going to absolutely lose their mind to hear this, and the reason you're playing it again is because, weirdly enough, this big PlayStation Kojima exclusive has launched on Xbox Game Pass. Now, just for PC, because 505 Games has the publishing rights on PC. But yet, strange, considering that Sony has been proven to pay off third parties to not release their games on Game Pass, they seemingly didn't do it for one of their own franchises.
Well, Microsoft has announced that new alignment with Kojima Productions on a game that may or may not be called Overdose, I think is what we reported back at E3 or non-E3. So I'd imagine if Sony's throwing money at Kojima or 505, I guess, as the publisher, to not let it on Game Pass, I guess Microsoft would probably be wanting to throw more to get it on Game Pass. And I guess it's sort of reported, I guess it's alleged that Microsoft gave $600,000 to a random European studio for the Game Pass rights to Cooking Simulator, I think it was called. So
yeah,
there must be a reason for that. And if they're going to give that much money for Cooking Simulator, despite what people think about Death Stranding, it's a big name title, and I'm sure Microsoft would be happy to throw more money. Correct? Well, theoretically.
Plus, it's just something we didn't really see coming, and also the rumor for it came out, and then the real announcement just followed it, which is great. Finally, not to have a rumor that you have to follow up for months, and it happened quickly.
Well, the rumor was technically just Game Pass putting up a photo of Death Stranding, so it wasn't really a rumor so much as a strategic marketing campaign.
It was, but how often do those not play out? There's the thing like that which people read into, and it's this was on purpose. You're right.
True.
There's people read into it, and then it kind of gets assumed that that's definitely going to happen, and it doesn't, and it's not what they meant. So good to see it work out this time.
Well, depending on who you talk to on the internet, I'm an Xbox shill, and I hate everything Xbox. It's reverse day. I hate everything PlayStation. I only love Xbox things. I'm playing Death Stranding for the third time because now it has achievements, and
you've been exposed by Death Stranding.
I assure you, I just wanted to make sure, just for my own benefit, achievements do not make Death Stranding any better. I played a little bit this morning. I read my original PS4 review. I played more after that, and I have never been more satisfied with anything I've written in my life than that review. So
I agree with you, Worth. I do not understand Death Stranding at all. It's not fun. Anyway, that's just my personal opinion. Something that I have found to be fun was when we played Fall Guys together. We've been talking about it for weeks, for months even. We finally played. It's a good little game.
Do I get to say I told you so at this point?
Yeah, You also told me so because you recommended it for my non-gaming partner, and she plays it. So it's the only game she plays. She knows how to sign in and turn an Xbox on and off now because of that one game. She's got some achievements from it. She got some that I like before me, like the knock 3 people over before you even stand up, that
Oh,
type of
you
thing.
noob! You utter
Um,
noob! Well done, Declare. Not you, because you're a
yeah,
noob.
uh, she hasn't quite won yet, but she done pretty well. Like made it through, so I think it matches you quite well with people who are similar skill level. Easy to get into, pretty easy to control. So it's like it's super easy to see what's happening. Um, Disappointing that there's no split screen. Like we could,
Yeah.
it's something that we probably would play together, but not to the degree of like different TVs, different rooms. I tried to play the Switch version because potentially I could have played that, but it's not great. I think it does the trick, which so we're no Digital Foundry, but I have seen that a lot of Switch games seem to have like your character run at 1 frame rate and like the other like one's further in the distance at half speed, and it seems like the robot arms. So my guess is you're running at a target of 30 frames, and everyone else is at 15 or below, and it just looks really janky and weird. So if that's all you've got, fair enough. But otherwise, I'd be playing on PlayStation and Xbox. But yeah, really good, easy to pick up and play. Geo's game didn't go so well, but I think as solos, we're all right.
And yeah, like I don't know if we can play a squad of 4 because that would literally mean we're each like you and Claire and Matt and I are on different Xboxes and different points of our houses in different points of Australia,
Yeah,
which like I guess there's a time and a place for that kind of social, but like that's not how I want to
yeah.
spend my social. Um,
Seems super obvious. Split screen is the go.
well, I think it's just like maybe it's not optimized enough to do that. Even like playing, I was cat sitting for my friend Freya, and I gave her my old Xbox One X, and like I just hung out with the cat for a couple hours a day. So I'm like, well, the Xbox is here. What's a game that I can download and just like play? So I was playing Multiverses on the on the One X, and like the frame rate was just atrocious compared to
Yeah.
what I'm used to playing on a Series X at home. So like I don't know what that you make one
Maybe.
version of the game and you try to optimize it probably for the I don't know the newest one or
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle, and it's very clear how it works, but it's not that like it's not that complex of a game in my mind. But I'm also not a developer, so who knows?
I wouldn't have thought split screen would make it that much more taxing. In that things like COD have online split screen, Halo does. Like you can still play with a bunch of people online,
Well,
and more,
Halo doesn't right now. The new Halo doesn't anyway. But
anyway,
COD does. You're right. COD certainly does. So I don't know. If you're a developer and can explain this to us in a simple way, God, by all means, not you won't get highlighted on the podcast. We'll also just interview you and do like some proper stuff with it. But
even if you made it a current gen only feature, in the way that like the dodgier Switch version, you can still play with people. We have to play with people on other platforms if you want to find a game easily, and it doesn't really affect it. It's just not a great way to play. So maybe if that is a more taxing requirement, you could put it on current gen only or something. So there's potentially options.
well, yes,
Anyway,
something that is also not co-op split screen, but is co-op from.
doesn't need to be.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. We're talking about Saints Row. I think we've agreed that we're going to keep it fairly spoiler free.
No story spoilers at all, so
Oh.
you can listen in. I don't even know what the story is, and I finished this game. So
I've not anywhere near finished because I didn't have to review it, and I have no idea what's going on, nor do I care. So that's not going to be a problem for me either. Since you have finished it, I think you
Yeah.
take the lead, and I'll follow your lead, like we tried to do in co-op.
Well, if you have been spoiled from a clip of the final boss battle that went a little bit viral, I think it was from Skill Up.
From
actually,
Skill Up, I
posted it.
watched that, and I like it. I sort of registered it, but it was more just like this is awful.
It was
like
more
as to what happened in the clip.
the glitchiness of that. My experience with that boss battle, not exactly the same glitch there, but I had a bunch beforehand. Like that's the end of the end. And that's a good summary of the game. I posted a few clips accidentally through Xbox uploading them early, and it was just things of me like running into a bike that you can't ride, but like slowly bumping into it and it goes flying. Like the collision detection and the physics are ridiculous. To go back to the start, this is a game which was rebooting a series which hasn't had a proper new installment for nearly 10 years, and it had an expansion in 2015. And so that was the last, well, 2 generation ago game. It's meant to be rebooting that. It has completely failed to reboot anything. It needs to be rebooted again because this feels like a 360 PS3 game, but it feels like an older one than the last few games. So I played Saints Row the Third to compare the remaster. That's a 2011 game, so kind of mid PS3 360 generation, and that feels more modern than this does. This feels more 2006.
It
Um,
looks like a 360 game. But sorry,
it
keep
look
going.
it looks like a 360 game that was remastered at the start of the Xbox One
It
generation when
doesn't
they
look
hadn't quite
remastered to
figured
me.
it
It
out.
just looks like a garbage 360 game, like muddy and gross. But sorry.
Well, that's so it's yes, it doesn't look great. It doesn't play great. If you played a Saints Row game before, you know what to expect. The issue is the previous games, they're all about murdering goons, and this is what this one's about as well, in ridiculous ways. They've toned down the humor so it's not quite as outrageous as number four was. It's still a bit childish, but I think it kind of fits. Like it is what it is. If you want to run around and free your nipple, you can do that, and that's all fine. Like it's that level of humor.
Yeah,
Fine.
no dildo bats, but you can put an
Yeah,
eggplant emoji on your Ken doll, like
that's right.
smooth nether region. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Um, which that's fine. Like you kind of get what it is, and then the actual gameplay is basically just constantly shooting thousands of the same generic guys that you've seen hundreds of times before. You've probably played that game before. It's very Assassin's Creed, Far Cry. A lot of shooters do that formula. Um, the problem is the previous Saints Row games kind of set up why you were doing this in interesting ways. They had, they threw in a fun set piece of you jumping out of a plane now to, um, now you've got to storm this building and rob a bank or whatever. And the gameplay that followed that ultimately did have you killing people, but in different ways. And then different vehicle sequences and stuff like that. So has similar setup. So like you'll go from something basic as I need to go get some donuts or I need to go review this shop to I need to bust someone out of prison or whatever. Like there's extremes, but then the gameplay within that is exactly the same every time. It's now murder goons. You buy a donut, oh no, I've got to kill 50 goons. Like it's exactly the same, and it's not good third person shooting. It's as I say, Saints Row the Third felt more modern, way more modern. It's very much 2006 third person shooter. And the way the AI moved, it reminded me a lot of GoldenEye on the 64, if you recall, when they would just stand in the corridor and then kind of roll to the side. Exactly the same movement. That's all they do. So it's dated, and yet still, had it been polished and it all worked well, I think it would have been a 6 out of 10. You might enjoy this if you just want to kind of have some mindless fun because it's not super long. And even though each mission is pretty much the same, it's still a little bit ridiculous. And there's probably things that Saints Row people would enjoy there. Somewhat disappointed in that it hasn't taken it to the next level and it hasn't improved things. It's probably worse than the last couple of games. It's nowhere near as good as the first two, but there would have been something there. The issue is it's horribly broken, as you and I both experienced. Like the co-op didn't work, we got separated and we couldn't rejoin. We had a ridiculous scenario where what happened? I saw you and I both in a car, and you saw us in separate cars, and then the
Yeah.
game just said like mission over.
Yeah.
Like
Because I tried to get out of my car to get into your car, and this happened to me quite a bit in the single player mode. There were times where like I couldn't move in the car and I failed because I wasn't in the car, but I was in the car. And there were also times where I thought I needed to get out of the car for some reason. And once you get out of a car in a mission, sometimes you can't get back in the car, and you get this weird like get back in the car timer with like all these red flashing things, but like you're trying to smash Y, but nothing happens. A lot of the time in single player as well, I would get to a combat encounter and I couldn't use any combat skills. So I was basically just standing around. I could run around, but like I couldn't do anything else.
a
And
lot of stuff like that doesn't trigger properly. Your character goes to open a fridge and nothing happens, and they just something appears in their hand, stuff like that. Um, Quite often, there's like you need to kill these guys who are outside of the mission zone. So to actually be able to shoot them, like they're so far away that you need to move out of it. But if you move out and you stand out of that for more than 6 seconds or something, you fail. I had one where you just had to kill the cops, and then too many cops come. Basically, you need to drive away in a vehicle. And when it eventually worked, they all spawned around me somewhat. like the first 4 or 5 times I tried and had to restart every time, is the second lot that would come after you would spawn on like an overpass bridge, like a few blocks back, and you could see them on your
Yeah.
map. But like then I couldn't. There's no way to get up there because to get up there you need to drive too far away. But you also can't shoot them from there because there's a barrier which is higher than they are. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, how is this happening? So like stuff like
I didn't encounter that one, but I've heard so many people talk about that specific encounter, and like the can't combat thing happens to everyone. I think a very frequent one is the car stuff that I was talking about. If you get in a plane, sometimes it just zooms in hyper speed into
yeah. So
something, and you can't fix it. So like you just have to either reset
you have
or
to
or
load.
make do. But the checkpoint system is also so bad. Like you could be 20-25 minutes back from where you were. And on top of that, and something that we encountered in our attempts at co-op, it like ate all of my autosaves and my actual manual saves, and I had zero game progress when we tried to do co-op for about probably like legit 2 hours, and we got 20 minutes of co-op out of it. And at least your game didn't get wrecked because you were reviewing it, and I was just kind of like there as the sidekick. But like I had to start again, and the start of the game isn't that engaging to make you want to start again and experience
It's
it a second time.
the start's the worst part, I would say. Like it actually probably improved from there, but it's
Well,
the
good at least.
the worst glitch is several times I had finished a long mission. It only happened after the longer missions, and I would get to a loading screen which is just black with Saints Row in the right hand corner, and it would just hang on that screen forever, and it would never progress past. Restart the game. My last save is not even my most recent autosave that I definitely had. It's like an hour or half an hour. And so that didn't happen once. It happened like 3 or 4 times, and it's draining to know, oh, I've got to do that long mission again, and possibly like a bit I did on the side before that, and still not be sure that it's gonna pass this time. Like, because that's when the game like it saves that you've completed the mission just after that loading screen actually loads. Like you will see when you play, it will load in and save will appear in the corner. And it's like yeah, to launch with that level of glitch is very problematic.
Well, and like there are games like Assassin's Creed Andromeda. That's a future sequel, undoubtedly. Mass
Oh,
Effect
yeah.
Andromeda, where like legit, I played through 40 hours of the game, and I had like maybe like a teeny, not really game breaking, just kind of annoying bug. But like I read about people who were having legitimate issues. This is a game
Yeah.
where like consistently games media is like this happened, this happened, this happened, this like, and everyone is encountering it, and it like beggars belief as to how this got through QA testing. If it's not like a sort of isolated incident here and there and everywhere, but it's like legitimately every person has run into this at least 1 or 2 times. It's
And
it's
that yeah.
undercooked is the easiest way to put it.
So it's obviously rushed out by the style of game. Like what they were trying to do was super safe as a reboot. It was let's make it as easy and quickly as possible. So it must have been rushed, and that was somewhat exacerbated by now this like plague of issues that it's got. And so we gave it a 4. You considered giving it even lower, but I still somewhat enjoyed my time with it. Like I think if you love Saints Row, there's something there, but it's frustrating. Um, and it is if it was any longer, I think I would have gone a lower score. Like I finished it playing only a small selection of side missions, admittedly, but I finished the main missions, and that took me probably 8 or 9 hours. Like it's not super long. So even if you played all that side stuff, I can't. I think I'm about 45 or 50% completion. So you're only going to double that, and the completion's a bit dodgy. Like you'll do a bunch of side missions and it won't jump up at all, and then you'll do one and it goes up like 2%. Like so, it's I'm not entirely sure how to read that. Um, I think being short actually helps it in that regard, but it also makes it even harder to recommend. Like, there's no doubt this is going to end up like a Battlefield $9 at JB in 6 months, or it's going to end up on PlayStation Plus Extra or Game Pass. So I would say that's the time to play it, and it should be patched up by then. So it should at least it's still going to be a pretty safe game that doesn't take the risks and the innovation that it should. But hopefully, at least it's not going to crash on you. Your co-op's going to work, and co-op would probably be pretty fun if it actually worked. Like the missions worked fine, drop in and out, messing about in if we were both in a helicopter rampaging around, that'd probably be fun. Like it'd just be a muck around sandbox, but it just doesn't work enough. than that.
Yeah, and like it seems like co-op was like a second thought. Like we only played 2 or 3 missions in the end because like it wouldn't work enough to do it consistently, and we were getting fed up. But there was one mission we were running through like tunnels, killing people, and there were like kind of 2 turrets set up like at various ends of this map, and I got into one. And I think you couldn't do anything for a little while. So I was like shooting at the boss guy from like a faraway turret, and I hit a checkpoint. And then you got like teleported into whatever you were supposed to be at, I guess, in their logic. But then you were having trouble in that other turret because you weren't there. Like, I don't know, you spawned in weird or something.
It teleported me to the other turret, but like in it, like physically in it, but like I wasn't controlling it. So like when you need to press Y or triangle to take control or something like that. So I jumped out and I kind of thought, just because it's put me here, I need to be like next to it. But no, I could at no point take control of it in the same way that sometimes you can't actually get into a vehicle when you need to. Like it was the same glitch probably. And it's just like, well, I guess I just have to wait for you to finish the mission because you clearly need to use this turret, which I can't use. So stuff like that.
And it's like to the point where it was you and I on a Saturday or a Sunday morning. Like we were having fun enough, just kind of like shooting the shit and talking to one another, and like there was fun to be had sort of in the gameplay when it worked. There was fun to be had making fun of the gameplay when it wasn't. But like a majority of that time was me just being like, it says you have to hit A or something to ready up because it says I'm waiting for you to join your co-op party, and we just were like stuck on loading screens for like 75% of the time that we were trying to play, and like that's not fun. We were still on in a party talking, but like when everything does kind of sync up, there is like legitimately fun to be had. So I think the 4 was accurate. There's some good bits. It's super buggy. It's not like unpolished in bits, but it could have used a lot more time in a majority of it. So
yeah, I think that's fair. That's our opinion, of course. But I am surprised to see like the 7, 8s, 9s. Even if you like the gameplay, just the level that it's in, unless the version of the game that we played is just dodgy as hell and there's this amazing PC build that is flawless. But I really doubt that.
Well, we can't speak to those other platforms, of course, but like sometimes you'll get publishers or developers like saying, "Oh, we don't have the Xbox or the PlayStation version ready, so like you definitely have to review this. Sorry, with the PC code or something." And I still feel like all of these complaints are coming from like the gamut of platforms. It's not like the Xbox build is buggy, the PlayStation build's better, or the PC build is like flawless. It feels like they're all pretty on par with one another. So you recommended it as maybe like a PlayStation Plus or an Xbox Game Pass game, and I think that's pretty fair. It's one of those ones that like, or like, you know, like as is late, like give it a year and maybe they'll put some money and bug fixing and stuff into it, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just like cut their losses. Embracer Group has lost stock price as a result of this release, which may or may not affect them. Let's get into the next bit of news, because Embracer Group is basically, I think they own you, Ben. I heard they acquired you last week.
Well, I'm available if they have enough money. They're embracing everyone.
They can't buy your review. I just want to make that crystal clear. Continue.
Yeah. In case that's what you thought, they bought the 4 out of 10. So, but yeah, they're buying everything. So they own so many studios. They bought a bunch of smaller ones recently, who I can't even remember because there's so many. But they also ended up with the rights to Lord of the Rings. So now they own they're getting into mass media properties.
Yes,
which is getting scarier.
Not like the book, The Lord of the Rings, but from my understanding of it, they own like the IP rights to like the Amazon show that's based on The Lord of the Rings, or maybe not because it's not based on the books.
Don't they have like the adaptation rights? So like games, movies, TV shows, that type of stuff.
Of the trilogy and The Hobbit.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so maybe so I guess that Amazon show is sort of not.
That's part of that.
I don't know. That's
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They somehow have Lord of the Rings. The point is they're buying up, like we're getting so caught up in like, should Microsoft be buying an Activision or something? This Embracer Group is so much bigger than Xbox or PlayStation. What do we make of them? Don't
It's
know.
yeah, it's weird. It's weird that they acquired like 6 or 7 different properties, and like the rest of them were like Tripwire Entertainment. I don't know other ones, but like the Lord of the Rings, the Tolkien IP rights. That's big, and
Yeah,
like
massive.
they have Deep Silver, right? Is that
Yeah,
yeah? Like they have
because they have Play On or whatever they're called now.
Play On.
Do they
That's like
not?
Play On, Koch, Prime Matter, Deep Silver. Like there's a
Yeah.
bunch under that. They're just slowly, surely taking over a lot of different things, and there might be smaller entities, but like I think that's kind of an issue with what's going on in the general landscape, and it's sort of games related, but not. Like Warner Discovery of late has been in the news because they're pulling, like episodes of Sesame Street and a whole bunch of like old shows, and canceling the Batgirl movie, and canceling like the new Batman animated series, which was like a continuation of like the 90s Batman animated series that I grew up on, like just to save money, because they're gobbling up entities and they need to prove to their investors that they can save money but still produce content. And it's hard not to see any acquisition taking that slant to some extent. And like, even we haven't seen it in Australia, I guess, with Microsoft and Bethesda as a good example, because like all the people who are doing Bethesda PR and admin and stuff in Australia still have jobs. It's not like they were laid off, but Microsoft
Yeah.
has taken them, and they're going to take Activision Blizzard. Theoretically, there are potentially 3 sets of people kind of doing the same thing. So the next logical step could be, well, we don't need you, or you, because we have too many people doing job A. Um, so it is scary, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and it's like, are they going to just sideline a bunch of these things anyway? Like when they first, so like 2013, they ended up with stuff like Darksiders and Destroy Humans, like stuff which no one really cared that much about, but they've ended up getting Lord of the Rings. Like they've gone
Well,
much bigger and they've
and
got so much.
Tomb Raider,
And Tomb
and
Raider.
what did they get from Square Enix? They got Tomb Raider. They got Just Cause, or no? Was that the one that they didn't take? They got a Thief
Uh,
for sure. They got a whole bunch of stuff from Square Enix.
yeah, they've got yeah,
Not a
heaps.
fact-based show. Don't
But
try.
well, they got Gearbox, right? So Gearbox is pretty big. Anyway, they've got Aspire as well, who didn't do very well with Knights of the Old Republic. So they nearly had a hit there, but that didn't quite work out. Yeah, Tomb Raider is probably one of their bigger game franchises. I think the main thing is that, so like whenever Sony like buying Bungie, or PlayStation buying, or Microsoft buying Activision, get so much scrutiny, and like we really hold them to the standard of like, oh my god, are you going to make this exclusive? That is that going to be good for us? And in some cases it probably is. Like I genuinely think that Microsoft could turn around Activision, which has a pretty dodgy culture by all reports. I
Yeah,
think that could be good. But we don't want them to own everything. Like there's a line there, and I think certainly the business world, but even more so probably fans of other console, even though it does flame the console wars a little bit, hold them to account somewhat, in that if you get too vocal, they're going to stop, they're going to slow down, or they're going to be cautious. Perhaps Microsoft was planning to make Call of Duty multi-platform at some point, but there's been enough rage that I don't think they will now. Like I
mm.
kind of feel like they don't want to risk just such negative PR, and it will sell like crazy on all platforms no matter what they do. I'm not
Yeah.
sure they even have to. It's such a big franchise.
And after a
Um,
giant flex by Sony to like Microsoft and the Call of Duty stuff, as we're seeing in like the Brazilian court with all those documents coming out, like I don't think
yeah,
Sony, even though they've acquired Bungie, if there's a Destiny 3, which I don't know if there is, I think it's going to be a new IP from Bungie. They're not about to make that a platform exclusive game now, because they've flexed so hard trying to be like, give
yeah,
power to the gamers. We all want platforms and stuff. So like there's a bit of accountability there. Embracer doesn't seem to have that
yeah.
in that
Embrace.
same way, but I guess maybe like with Saints Row tanking and the stock price tanking, maybe that's accountability. Like you can't just push out
Yeah, maybe.
garbage. You need to, garbage is a bad word, but you can't push out subpar undercooked things. You need to make sure they're ready to go, and if you're going to put it out on 17 platforms, just make sure it can play well on those platforms, and then that will bring money back in. So that's sort of accountability, but is it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm jaded. I don't think it is.
It goes more unnoticed. The same with Tencent. Like they're so massive, and we're so focused always on the main platform holders. What are they doing? Whereas they're actually not as big as we might think they are. There are bigger companies around them, and they're just like these big conglomerate groups. Like they're not like they're a single publisher. It's like Embracer Group has a bunch of publishers.
Yeah, group. So I don't know. We'll
Basically,
see how it goes.
We know nothing.
Not a fact-based show. We couldn't
Yeah.
tell you if they have Just Cause or not, and we don't care. We'll find out some other time when it's relevant to the story that we're talking about. Last topic.
What we
What?
can tell you is that PlayStation seems to have given up on classic games on PlayStation Plus in month number 2. So this is pretty disappointing. The games for August came out. It was a small selection, and the extra games were okay. So let's start on the positive. They were not mind-blowing, but we knew from the start that new releases are not really a thing on PlayStation Plus. There's going to
True.
be the odd one like Stray. So with that in mind, having a bunch of like Yakuza games or something, not bad. But to have no classics in month 2 is pretty pathetic, really, especially when you consider that there was only one PSP game and there's still only one. There was a very small selection of PS1 games, which for some reason includes like 2 versions of Worms, but like a bunch of major franchises missing. And the PS2 classics, we may as well discount all of them because what's there is already available on PS4 through the PS2 classics lineup there, and they've been there for years. So I feel like until they release some new ones that weren't already on the platform, being on PS4 means they're on PS5. Can't really count them. And we don't have PS3 games, of course. So there's such a small lineup. My thinking was they were doing a Nintendo in drip feeding it, but even Nintendo give us one Nintendo 64 game every
They've
month.
turned the faucet off already, and that's scary.
Yeah, month 2. I thought they were going to, and it's not like work needs to be done. Like they've re-released a bunch of these games on previous platforms. They're there to, I know they stuffed up the whole PAL thing, giving us the dodgy versions in the wrong frame rate. Easily to fix that. It doesn't require a lot of work. They've got the ROMs just sitting there.
Yeah.
If they want to add some trophies or whatever, and that's going to take some time, fine. But like you'd at least expect to have some releases, not
do
none.
it later and tie it into the save game, because I'm in this like precarious position now, I guess, where we talked about it a couple episodes ago, I'm sure, for Stray. I upped my sub from Essentials to Deluxe.
Extra?
I literally had to check my notes. I had to look down at my notes. The only reason I am checking my notes is because I got an email from Sony saying your subscription is about to expire because we've used all of your paid stuff. So in September, we're going to charge you $154.95 for 12 months of
full price.
PlayStation Plus Deluxe. And I'm like, I don't think I will let you, because I don't see the point.
There's nothing on Deluxe. So the thing is, they promised like over 300 classic games at launch. And to be fair to them, a bunch of those are streamed PS3 games that we don't have. But I mean, that's what they
and
said.
subsequently pay a little bit less for, but not much.
I don't think we pay enough less, because what we actually have instead of that 300 plus is we have about 30, and we pay like $10, $20 a month, not a year, sorry, not a month, less. I feel like it should have been that 150 you said.
It should definitely $20 less a month for us.
Yeah.
I would pay that for sure. Perfect.
Yeah, it seems like too much, but it seemed obvious to me that they'd be releasing more. So is it a fact that they just don't have the emulation ready? There's issues with it. Is it licensing? But like, surely if it was licensing, and it could be, they would just release some of their first party games while they sort out the licensing for some third party stuff. Like, they don't have the license to Resident Evil 2, for example, but they could definitely get it. They released Resident Evil 1 already. So I don't know what it is. Why wouldn't they have any ready for month 2?
I don't know if they have enough data to be able to justify what I'm saying, but I'm like pure speculation here. They've looked at the data. No one's playing the classics, and then people are playing the newish or newer stuff, like the Yakuza stuff, like maybe all of the Ubisoft Plus classics or whatever that thing is called, like all the newish games that maybe people didn't buy but are like, I don't know, we'll say 5 to 6 years old or newer, that are justifying the cost of a subscription if you are not us. Whereas like me, like I have a Game Pass subscription, so if there's a multiplayer game, I'll probably get it on Xbox, and then the multiplayer's done. So like I had essentials for maybe Sony PlayStation multiplayer games, and I'll probably keep that. I won't go deluxe in case I need it, but I'm back to where I was, I think, before this came out and we were talking about it. I am interested in the classics, but I'm not interested in just like going and playing Ape Escape for shits and giggles. Like I want Resident Evil, I want RE2, I want RE3, I want Dino Crisis, and I think for me it's more cost effective to wait until those are ready, and rather than taking advantage of them in the subscription, I'll just pay $20 a pop or whatever the price. I think that's about right, $20 a pop,
Yeah,
to just
15. Yeah,
get them and own them and have them for when I want them.
Which they said for PS1 games, they kind of made it look like that wouldn't be a thing, but it seems like you can buy them. So yeah, I think what you said could be a good point if there was only one or only two tiers. If there was essentials and then just the extra games, maybe they would have thought, you know what, people don't play the classics, so for the first few months, let's give them newer games because that's what's going to keep people subscribed. And fair enough for extra, but then why does the deluxe level exist? Like they should have almost said to us here, we don't have all the PS3 games. That's going to be the third tier internationally. You're just going to get essentials and just deluxe. Like there's no extra or something. There's just that one step up, which is cheaper price than what it is here, and you get the handful of classics which get released every year because it's very disappointing to subscribe to a level of the highest tier of a subscription, and that's the one that doesn't get new content. If they did the other way around and extra didn't get it for a brief period, you can kind of say, well, you've got kind of like the silver level. Like I can't think of anything else where you get the gold level and you get less benefits than you would have done if you'd got like silver's getting more new stuff than you are. So it just doesn't make sense.
And unrelated, but sort of is related, like it still makes no sense to me that game trials are tied to the highest tier of the subscription service, where you would be better off putting that at the lowest tier so people could try a game, and if they like it and it's not in the subscription but it's discounted or something, you will get the extra sale. Whereas most people who are in the highest tier probably already have those games that they're trying to sell to you via trial, and it just doesn't make any sense. And there's also that weird obligation of developers and publishers to make these trials on top of their normal processes. But like, I don't know, someone's looking at the numbers and it must be computing, or like it's too early to revise or revamp. But I guess even in that case, something will change in that theory.
I would have thought they would have planned, even if there was numbers saying that no one's playing the classics, they would have planned far enough ahead that they would have had some ready for now anyway. So that makes me think that they've rushed this out much quicker than they planned to, which would explain why there were so few games in classics to begin with, because they're harder to do than the extra tier, because that's just games which are already on PS5 via being on PS4. But then if that's true, there's a bunch of PS2 games which, as I just said, are on PS4 that they could easily add. You have to do anything. They've already got trophies. They're already in the store. So like maybe it was rushed out and they just haven't had time to plan it out properly, but it's poor. Like there's no other way around that.
If Sony could get that organized, that would be lovely. Just so I can play RE2 and RE3 and Dino Crisis. Like that's really all I'm super caring about at this point. Maybe like there was a whole bunch of really good Star Trek games on PlayStation, which will definitely not be licensed anymore and will be very difficult to release. But if they can manage those, I'll take those too, and I'll buy them individually. And it's probably going to come out to more money than me buying a subscription. So there you go. Not that Sony listens to me, but they could if they wanted to.
Unpopular opinion, one of my favorite PS1 games was the Phantom Menace game. Now, it's not played by a handful of people, and like it's ambitious. Like it came out years later that they made this game having no idea what the movie was going to be about, because they just had some like concept art and a script that was wrong, basically. So they just kind of had to make it up from the original trilogy, what they thought it would become. And they did okay. Like it had branching dialogue. It had like lightsabers when games hadn't really had that before to that degree. You could go kill everyone if you wanted to, and then people wouldn't help you, so you couldn't get through the mission. Stuff like that. Like it's a fun game. There are heaps of old Star Wars games through these subscription services, but this one wouldn't be. And that's disappointing because it's a banger. I mean,
Well,
it's hard to play, but it's a banger.
you think we have it easy as games journalists now, Ben? But I used to work at Rogers Video, the like Blockbuster equivalent in Canada, and had a PlayStation, and I could literally just rent any game that we had whenever I wanted for free. I just had this. I had like the PlayStation Plus Super Duper Deluxe Premium. It just wasn't called that at the
Years
time.
early.
It was fantastic. There was a Star Trek game that was like in the Mirror universe, and George Takei was like voicing Sulu, but he was like evil Sulu, like the one without his shirt on and like the fencing foil. Oh, it was so good. Such a good game. PlayStation, like PS1 games, probably we have rose-colored glasses on thinking about some of these, but like, mwah, chef's kiss.
Basically, the ones we want are never going to be released, but we would still love to see some more actually released. And some PSP games. Like, there's only one. Like, why do you even... You can't... PlayStation, you can't say that there's PSP games on this service. One game doesn't count. Like, you need... There's certainly not games. You can say game. And even that's generous. Like, come on.
It's literally the dawn of a new month, being September. Maybe we'll have surprises this month. Maybe November. Maybe we'll get Christmas. Might not be early, but we might get Christmas from PlayStation Plus.
We did.
It'll be too late for me because I've already canceled my subscription.
We did let slip at the start of this episode that we're recording this one a couple of days early, so it is possible we'll look like fools when between then and now they've announced like all these classic games coming to the service. And if that happens, sorry.
We'll just come back for a 5-minute like special podcast bonus episode where it's like a retraction, and I'll happily take it all back. I don't feel like we're gonna need to do that though, Ben.
I don't think we will. And if we did have to do that, it'll be right here. Was there anything? Nothing. If there was just a gap there, it means that didn't happen. And that's the magic of podcasts.
You're acting like I'm gonna change this. I'm just like I'm getting this ready like the day that we record this, and we'll do it. We'll do the due diligence. It'll be fine. Are we done? What do you say? It's been like a 40-minute episode. This is overly long for us.
There's a lot there. Don't play Saints Row. Consider your PlayStation subscription. Xbox is not doing much better. They haven't had a day one release in years. Everything's bad, basically. So hopefully games improve. That's our gist.
How do we find your optimistic self on the internet, Ben?
I want to be back and perky and upbeat about games in the next episode. You can find me in the meantime on Twitter, Ben_Salter. And how do we find you?
That is a good question, and my brain is just completely shut off. Right. My name is Steve Wright, Wright AU. Since we last spoke, you can get a whole bunch of stuff on NHL 23 because I know you're itching to find out about it. I also previewed the Dark Pictures Devil in Me, which seems like it's going to be pretty good. We'll talk about this next time. Maybe I finally finished after like fully a year and a half, House of Ashes.
I'm excited.
Ooh. So we can talk about some Supermassive stuff if we're devoid of content. And very shortly, very soon, you'll probably see at least Jay's Splatoon review on the site. I'm sure in September there's more stuff going on, but I am bad at telling the future.
Well, that's fine. I think we'll leave that one there, and we'll see you next time.